Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we're going to talk about signs you are physically attractive to women. And the reason I'm making this is because one of you requested that I make a video particularly about physical attraction because a lot of the attraction videos had like a combination of both. And I wanted to mention that there's a little bit of misconception about, female attraction. A lot of times men think that women are more focused on physical attractiveness because men seem to be more naturally like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that this video might be a little bit limiting because of that. Because yes, physical attractiveness is a component to attraction, but it's more fundamental for males than it is for females. And so while this will give you an insight, it's not going to give you the entire picture of how a woman finds you attractive. I just wanted to put that out there. I hope that makes sense. The first 3 points that we're actually going to cover is going to be focused on facial sexual dimorphism, particularly, of course, for the masculine characteristics. And then from there, I'm going to explore other characteristics. But the 3 points have a lot of they have a similar pattern, and we're going to talk about that. All the research is going to be in the description box, and I'm going to tell you my opinions of all of these things personally for my perspective at the end, because that commenter that talked about the physical attractiveness, that wanted a video on it, he also mentioned that a lot of the videos I make are very, very research heavy, which is true, and I don't give my actual opinions, and they wanted my actual opinions because I am female. So I'm going to give my opinions, but I'm going to put that at the end, and I'm going to be as honest as possible. Whether you guys believe me or agree with me or not, I'm going to be honest. But it's going to be at the end because a lot of you guys, I think, maybe you don't want to hear that. But that commenter did, so I'm doing that for that person. Okay, the first one that I wanted to mention was a moderate jawline, not a strong jawline. And there's mixed studies on the strong jawline, which is why I said that's not the main characteristic, because what I saw is that too strong of a jawline based on research can signal dominance at the expense of warmth or family orientation, which affects preference. And so a moderate jawline is what the research kind of signified, okay? The next one is similar, which is why I'd mentioned all the facial sexual dimorphism has the same pattern. Moderate defined chin. Again, the mixed results regarding a too strong definition, as there is evidence to support that a too strong defined chin can be perceived as signaling dominance at the expense of warmth and compromise. The next one is the same thing. Moderate brow ridge. Again, same thing, too strong, and that can signal dominance at the expense of family orientedness and warmth, okay? So that is the facial structure. The next one that we'll talk about is broad shoulders and narrow waist. One of you guys mentioned what it's called, or a lot of you guys, some V thing, V taper. I think so. I'm not sure. But it's basically, we've talked about this on this channel actually a lot. And I actually made a video very particular about the first area that a female looks at, which is the chest. And that kind of talks about this too. But regarding this area, we also see that women in general use this to see, like subconsciously, she feels like it signals strength and fitness. The next one is that taller men are perceived as more attractive. Now, I would like to stop here for a minute and talk about what this means. The perception of height is dependent on the person, but interesting enough, based on the research, height is a perception dependent on the country you live in, which makes sense because different countries have different height specifications for what is considered average or above average or rare in either direction. And overall, the research, I looked at the samples, and from what I saw, the samples show that it's a significant height jump from her height, the female's height, versus her perceived attractive height for the male. And it looks like to me about five plus inches from her height. So if she's 5'5", that would mean that she finds 5'10" to be attractive. But that's one research that I saw. But another one I did notice that 5'10" and 5'11" tends to be the men who are most coupled in at least the United States, which makes sense because that's it's a little above average than the average height, but it's not like too tall. And so that was interesting about height. I also made a video about height in general, if anyone is curious. And the last one is even facial features. And there's a reason to this. Typically, what we see for both male and female is any features that kind of are too atypical or kind of divert away from what we see as typicality of our facial structure. Actually, we see that atypical may signal unhealthy development to some extent. It's not always the case. That's just a perception from a biological and psychological standpoint. And so a lot of times people, females included, prefer facial features that are more even or typical, to be honest. And so those are the points. And now that's based on the research. All of the research is in the description box. But now I'm going to take a moment, the last bits of this video, to mention how I think. Personally, just me, and I'm just one sample size of how I feel about each of these points, because a lot of you guys have been asking, and I feel like that's fair. I'm not going to do that with every video, but this one, the particular commenter asked for both. So I don't remember the commenter's username, but I will go ahead and do that. The first one is moderate jawline. I do think that that's probably something that is attractive. I would prefer a moderate jawline over like a very strong jawline. I actually don't care for strong jawlines I don't find that attractive. I don't know if that's weird of me. Moderate chin defined. I think, yes, that is attractive. Too defined chin, I don't think is attractive. And then I don't think, if a chin is not that defined at all, I don't think that's unattractive. I think it's less attractive than a moderate defined chin. But I think a less defined chin is less, it just seems less, in your face. I don't know how to describe it, than a very defined chin. Like a very, very, very defined chin versus a chin that's not very defined. I feel like I'd rather the not very defined chin. But moderate, I feel like, is the most attractive. Then moderate brow ridge. I think brow ridge, for me, I don't think it matters too much, if I'm being completely honest. I guess moderate is the best. Moderate is probably the best, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm reading it if you're wondering where I'm looking. So broad shoulders and narrow waist. Yes, but not too extreme. I think if it's too extreme, it looks a little fake. That's probably not a nice word. I don't like it if it's too extreme. And I think it is because it looks, maybe it looks like a little bit unnatural. Maybe. I'm not sure. I haven't put much thought into this. I've actually never put thought into a lot of these things. So height I have, because one of you guys asked me and I talked about it on another video. The next one is height. Taller men are perceived most attractive. So I'm 5'3", so I'm using that to compare. Well, I'm 5'3 and a half. I don't know, 5'3", 5'4", whatever the case is. And I think the most attractive height is from 5'9" to 5'11". I actually don't think 6 foot is my speed. For males, I just think that's too tall for me. And I know everyone's going to think I'm lying. I'm not. I really am not. I would rather 5'9" or over 6 foot. I would. And I'm sure no one's going to believe me, but I'm telling you the truth. And the last one is even facial features. Yes. Yeah, that one I think I prefer as well. So actually, I do agree with all of these pretty much. Most of these. So I hope that was helpful. Please subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.